One night, a beautiful woman named Doris was seen drinking in a bar. There was also a man named Nick who worked as a bodyguard. After that, Doris was visited by her boyfriend, Osgood. Osgood told Doris that he got a promotion at his job, which required him to move to another city. Osgood invites Doris to marry and live together, but Doris refuses and does not want to live with him.
Hey, excuse me, let go!
Suddenly, Nick approaches them and flirts with Doris until Nick grabs Osgood's hair, which turns out to be fake. Doris is scared and takes Osgood out of the place. When they were in the car park, Nick approached them again. This time, Osgood was furious and beat Nick to the ground.
It's over.
Doris, who saw that, was very impressed with Osgood. Although Osgood had thin hair and looked ordinary, he turned out to be a very tough man. Finally, Doris agrees to marry him and come with him to another city. Meanwhile, on the other hand, there was a woman who was deliberately dumped in front of the hospital in a dying state. Luckily, the woman was found by a nurse there. While undergoing examination in critical condition, the woman repeatedly mentioned the name Nick. The next day, Nick came to his office. Not long after, a client named Cyrus arrived. Cyrus claimed he was a wealthy gambler and wanted to hire Nick as his bodyguard. At first, Nick was hesitant to Cyrus, but because Cyrus kept insisting, Nick finally agreed.
7 o'clock, Mr. Kinnock.
After that, Nick stopped by his favorite small restaurant. Before entering, Nick reunites with Osgood, who beat him up last night. In fact, it turns out that Osgood is Nick's friend, who asks Nick to pretend that Osgood can get attention from Doris. Osgood also gave Nick $1,000, but Nick only took half of it because they were friends. When Nick walked into the restaurant, the waitress greeted and welcomed Nick. They looked very familiar. Nick told the waiter that he dreamed of living on the French island of Corsica. Nick wanted to live a quiet life there because he was tired of the city of Las Vegas. And to live quietly there, he needs $500,000 for his life for 5 years, while the money he has now is far from that figure. Not long after that, Nick received a message from his friend Holly. Nick is asked to come to her house. As it turns out, Holly is the woman who was dying in the hospital yesterday. Holly tells Nick everything about that night. Holly, as usual, serves her clients at the hotel. Holly met 3 men in the elevator when she wanted to leave the hotel. One was short and bossy, and the other 2 were big men who seemed to be his bodyguards. Holly was invited by them to enter the man's room. After that, Holly was forced to serve the man. Then, Holly was beaten by her 2 bodyguards so as not to report the incident to anyone. After that, they dumped Holly in front of the hospital. Holly asked Nick to find out who the 3 people were and wanted to sue him through legal channels. But after getting the name of the hotel, Nick, who knew the hotel Holly meant was a mafia den, Nick immediately refused because he no longer wanted to deal with the mafia. Nick wanted to focus on pursuing a peaceful life on Corsica Island. Still, in the end, Nick, who could not bear to see his friend who had been raped, finally agreed to help.
They stayed away from me.
After that, Nick went to the hotel through the back road. He met her old friend named Millie, and Millie happened to work at the hotel. Nick asked Millie for help to find out who the person was who had molested Holly at the hotel where she worked. Then, Millie told Nick to meet her at her favorite restaurant. In the afternoon, they met, and Millie said the boss who mistreated Holly was Denny DeMarco. The other 2 people were his bodyguards. Denny himself is the son of an influential Italian mobster. Millie tells Nick not to deal with them.
With these.
Later that night, Nick is seen at work escorting his client, Cyrus. Nick takes Cyrus around the gambling spots in Las Vegas. Nick looks confused between focusing on his dream or leaving his life and returning to dealing with the mafia because he realizes Holly will not be able to sue them. Finally, Nick decides to leave Cyrus alone at the bar. Later, Nick goes to Holly's house. There, Nick told Holly that the person who had molested her was Denny DeMarco. After hearing that, Holly immediately asks Nick for help to avenge Denny. Nick again refused, but Holly brought up Nick's past, saying that Holly had helped Nick when Nick was in a bad state.
I want my revenge, Nicky.
Finally, Nick agreed because he felt indebted to Holly. After that, Nick went straight to Denny's residence. Once there, Nick told Denny's men he had business with Denny regarding a woman on Baby's orders. Baby is the most respected mafia boss in Las Vegas. Hearing Baby's name, Nick was immediately invited in to meet Denny. After meeting with Denny, Nick told him what he wanted. Denny thought that Nick was a messenger from Holly who would blackmail him.
We were having ourselves a little party.
Could he be talking about us?
No, that's not us. No.
She's a whore, you're her pimp.
Then, Denny pointed a gun at Nick. Nick, who didn't want any trouble, was about to leave. However, Denny said he would teach Nick a lesson for daring to bother him. Hearing that upset Nick, and he immediately beat Denny and his 2 bodyguards. Then, Nick tied up the 3 of them. After that, he invited Holly to come there. Holly pulled a large pair of scissors from her bag without further ado. Denny, who was scared, offered Holly some money in his drawer to forgive him. Holly took the money and gave it to Nick, but she would still get revenge. She cuts a bit of Denny's missile to make him whimper in pain. His 2 bodyguards can't do anything about it.
Guess there's
Let me be, please. You got the wrong idea.
I'm gonna give you the same break that you gave me. Bad boys need to be punished.
Don't do this, don't. Just don't. No, please don't.
After embarrassing Denny, they leave. Once outside, they split the money. Holly leaves Las Vegas that night because she realizes Denny won't let her live if she's still in town. Nick thought the same, but before that, Nick stopped by a casino first, hoping to double his money. After arriving at the casino, luck was on Nick's side. He kept winning card games at the casino. Cyrus was also seen there. He saw Nick keep winning until the dealer was confused.
I'm not greedy.
Watch out. What the f*** is this?
I'm over 500.
That night, Nick managed to double the money from $25K to $500K, which meant that the money was enough to fulfill his dream. Before exchanging his coins, Nick talks to Cyrus and tells him about his dream of living a quiet life on the island of Corsica. Then Nick walked to the exchange counter to exchange his coins, but suddenly, he cancelled and wanted to bet all his coins to double them back.
This is not what I need. It means nothing. Enough so I'll never have to come back here.
Nick told Cyrus that if he used his money now for his dreams, then after 5 years, he would have to return to this place, so Nick would try to double his money so that he could live quietly longer there. In the end, Nick bets all his money in one game, but in that game, Nick loses.
You should have stood, Nicky.
No big deal.
Then Nick went to the toilet, where Nick regretted his careless actions and made himself lose $500,000 in one game. He then drank and got drunk until he passed out unconscious. When Nick woke up, he was already in the VIP casino room. Cyrus told him about his purpose for coming to this city, and it turned out that he was not a gambler but a very rich program developer at 19. When he came to the city, Cyrus felt he was a coward. He then came to Nick to learn to be brave. Cyrus invited Nick to adventure to various cities and countries, with Cyrus covering the costs. However, Nick refused. He went out and sat on a bar stool.
Help me with what?
Why do you think you stay here? You hate it so much, it's the only place.
Well, I am my past, Cyrus. Go on your own.
After that, Denny's men came to beat up Nick. It was a one-sided fight because Nick was emotional after losing his $500K. Not long after that, the police came to stop him. The next day, Baby invites Nick to a place. Baby said that there was a problem to be solved because there was a son of the Italian Mafia who said that Nick had killed his bodyguard.
To bet someone was you. To see DeMarco, I have to find the truth.
If Nick is found guilty, Baby will finish Nick off at that moment. Denny continued to corner Nick by saying he had been robbed by Nick and 2 of his bodyguards were shot dead. However, Denny continued to hide the matter of his mistreatment of Nick. At that point, Nick asked 2 questions. The first one is why he has to kill using a gun. While Baby knows Nick can easily kill someone without the need to use a firearm, he can even kill someone with an ashtray from 5 meters away. Secondly, Nick told Denny to open his pants and show his injured missile. Finally, Baby concluded that the person who had robbed Denny was not Nick. Denny, who felt unhelpful to Baby, left immediately and continued to threaten Nick.
I'm gonna see you real soon.
Baby finally got an explanation from Nick that his 2 bodyguards had been shot dead by Denny himself because he had been humiliated by a woman in front of his own bodyguards. Then, Baby let Nick go. The next day, Nick returns to his favorite small restaurant for breakfast. Cyrus was there because he knew Nick would have breakfast there. There, Cyrus said goodbye to Nick because he was leaving town. Cyrus thanked Nick for learning from him that everyone has their fears. Now, all one has to do is believe in oneself and acknowledge one's true self, and then all the fears might not be so bad. Cyrus also presents Nick with a plane ticket to Corsica and a check for $500,000. However, Nick is not too happy because Denny is about to kill him. Not long after that, Denny arrived with his men. Then, Cyrus climbs onto the table and pretends to be a madman to distract attention. Then, Nick hides on the roof while carrying a spoon and bread knife. There, Nick heard Denny ordering his men to kill Cyrus and burn down the restaurant. Nick does not want to bring danger to Cyrus, so he fights Denny and his men. After a fierce battle, Nick finally kills Denny and all his men. Then, when Nick was about to leave, Cyrus approached him. Cyrus continued to force Nick to accept his gift. Nick, who continued to be forced by Cyrus, finally accepted the gift.
Friends? Don't ruin it.
Merry Christmas, Nick.
Nick immediately went home and packed. Then, he left Las Vegas and went to Corsica. And the movie is over. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy, hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice just to be sure. You should watch the full movie. Thank you very much for watching.